Welcome to I, the podcast that delves into the conflicting dualities within us and where we celebrate the art of being more than one thing. I'm your host, Terry Katz, and as someone who walks between the two worlds of filmmaking and music, I know firsthand the beauty and tension that exists living between two creative realms. In this podcast, we'll explore the dualities of guests who, like all of us, embody more than one side, navigating lives that don't always fit neatly into a single label. So let's dive in to explore the dualities within ourselves that shape our identities and make us who we are. Today, our guest has a passion for firefighting and cinematography.
And so I got my application, and the assistant chief that handed me the application at that time said something that was quite true. And he said that you'll meet people here at the firehouse that will become lifelong friends. And he was absolutely correct.
Please welcome Ray Preziosi. How you doing, Ray?
Hi, great to be here.
Could you give a little sense of your background?
My job, what I do to make money, is working in the motion picture industry as a director of photography. The other thing that I like doing as well, and that is being a member of the volunteer fire service.
How did you discover your love for firefighting and cinematography? Did one come before the other?
I don't know if one did come before the other because it was something I was always interested in, even as a little kid. So I can remember running around my grandmother's house with my uncle's tripod, pretending to shoot movies of just life around my grandmother's house. And then I also remember tricking out my bicycle to be like a fire engine and responding to fire calls in my backyard. I remember one time my father was a smoker, set the backyard on fire with a cigarette butt, and that prompted me to, along with my brother, to have our little bicycle fire department.
What occurred that enabled you to finally work as a firefighter?
I was always interested in it. If you were joining the volunteer fire service on Long Island, it's really the big time firefighting. I always thought that I could do that and also be in the motion picture industry, and I'd get kind of the best of both worlds. While I was attending New York Institute of Technology, there was another student there named Gary Fippinger, who was a member of the Hicksville Fire Department. He said, yeah, I'll go down to the firehouse with you and we'll get an application. I said, okay, great. And so I got my application, and the assistant chief that handed me the application at that time said something that was quite true. And he said that you'll meet people here at the firehouse that will become lifelong friends. And he was absolutely correct.
Can you tell us about your first emergency response as a firefighter?
My first emergency response as a firefighter was a brush fire.
Were you home when you got the call for that?
I must have been, yeah.
Can you maybe walk us through your home? Maybe you're having dinner with Carol and you get a call. What walk us through what happens?
The telephone would ring a special short ring. It'd be just like ding, 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 which would be different than the normal phone ringing. And so you knew that when you picked the phone up, there would be a recording telling you what the fire was, where it was, and whatever particulars there were. You picked up the phone, you listened to it, brush fire. I got in the car, I flipped on my blue light, and drove to the firehouse. Put on my turnout gear and jumped on the back of the fire engine. I remember jumping onto the back step, which is really, when you think about it now, the things we did in those days, riding on the back of a fire engine at Southern State Parkway, going 60, 70 miles an hour, holding on to the bar, and it was like, oh, wow. If I wasn't hanging on, I would have been left on the ramp.
That drive with the blue light on must have a sense of power, right? People gave way.
To this day, they still do.
Did you ever use it just to get home quicker?
No. Well, if you ever got caught doing that, that would not go well for you. The blue light does not give you any special powers on the road. It's just a courtesy. And people do get out of the way. It's amazing. They pull over.
Well, I do.
You're a good citizen.
I'm a good citizen. Compared to a film production, I would think in a firefighting situation, it's more the sense of somebody on an emotional level looking out for you, somebody covering your back. Whereas in film, it's a lot different attitude, so to speak. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. On a film set, I've met some really wonderful people, really fun to be with, bright, great folks. And we've become friends over the years. I know, and even, while I guess when we worked together, probably on a film with like Doug, a short
Yeah,
film or
good
something, right?
old days.
The old days, right? Stuff like that. So, yeah. So, again, friends for life, right? So, there's that uh, friendship, which was good, solid, wonderful friendship. As with the fire department, there's a little bit of a different kind of a friendship where you really depend on these people to help you, survive a fire. It was just strictly confiding with someone for advice or just like, yeah, there might be some people in the film community I would do that. However, if there was some emergency going on, where I was stuck somewhere or, my wife Carol needed something or there was stuff like that, I would go to the fire department friendships first for anything like that, where action needed to be taken. The big similarity is, of course, the team effort. And so while as the director of photography, you are tasked with carrying out the director's vision of the film from a photographic standpoint, I depend on my gaffer, my key grip, my camera operator, um, to collaborate with just exactly how are we going to do that. As the director makes the final decisions on basically everything, in the end, I make the final decisions on the ways we're going to carry out that director's vision. When it comes to the fire department, that is also, of course, very much a team effort where you have the chief, the assistant chiefs, the captains, the lieutenants, and the firefighters all working together to achieve the goal of extinguishing the fire. If we take the emergency aspect out of the fire service, you can see that both activities are very goal oriented and there is a chain of command and there are various departments working together to achieve that goal. I mean, even the fact that where we place the fire apparatus, the trucks, on arrival to a fire scene is very critical to the success of putting out that fire. And so the same thing when we arrive at a location, putting the truck that carry the equipment in the right locations again is critical to success of that endeavor. I try to control as much of the everything as possible in terms of how the picture is going to look, how it's going to be lit, how it's going to be photographed, where we're going to put the camera, where we're going to put the lights, and the more control we have, the greater um, the uh, the possibility of a good outcome. Which is a difference, of course, in the fire business, where we're arriving on a scene that is out of control.
A director of photography and a firefighter's wife and family both feel your absence.
Yes,
How did you deal with that?
that's one of the downsides. There's no question about that. Because there are times when I'd be off on a movie for weeks at a time, distant location. When you are home and the alarm goes off, how many dinners, how many, family events, how many nights sleeps have you not had because you were off on a fire call?
It's good to have family that understands. It's good to have support for what
Yes.
it is you're doing.
When I am home, I'm really home. I'm home more than your average person. So that kind of makes up for it.
When you guys got married, and I was there, it was quite an event with all the firefighters joining in.
The member gets married, they usually like to have a crew in their uniforms and line up outside with pipe poles crossed, fire engine standing by, and as you step outside, they blow the sirens. I was able to step onto the back step of a fire engine, along with my new wife, of course, in her wedding gown. They did escort us to the reception as well.
You're a lucky guy that Carol was amenable to
Yes.
to that.
As far as being married to Carol and her being amenable and agreeable to all this fire department and movie business activities, I really hit the jackpot on that one. I really can't ask for anyone to be more understanding and encouraging for those two really time-consuming activities.
Okay, let's talk about cinematography again. Is there a project that you're especially proud of that you'd like to tell us about?
The one project that I am proud of is a project that my wife and I put together called Ride With Us. And it combines my passion for the fire service and the motion picture industry. And it revolves around the fact that volunteerism in the volunteer fire service around the country is not what it used to be. Volunteerism being down, we thought we'd come up with a series called Ride With Us. And it would be different than other recruitment videos. We thought we'd take a different approach. You may be familiar with the show, the long-running PBS show called This Old House, which is one of my favorite TV shows. Basically, it has a host, and we're building a house, and there are various contractors who the host interacts with, and we see what they're doing on that particular episode. And kind of after you get done watching the show, you kind of get the feeling that, hey, maybe I can do some of that stuff as well. If you go to ridewithusfd.com, you'll see like 10 episodes. We visit fire departments, we see some equipment, we meet firefighters, and at the end, it's, hey, you could do this too.
Maybe we take a moment. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Come ride with us.
Ride With Us, the series that takes you inside the volunteer fire service.
Just drop it in there?
Just drop it in.
See how fire departments operate and how the members train using highly specialized technical equipment.
I'm confused. So the guys get in there and then you start a fire? What is this?
So this should be really easy for you.
I don't know.
And that's how I got my name, Bubble Man.
Watch the episodes at ridewithusfd.com.
Visit your local firehouse and volunteer today.
Nice, Ray. Do cinematography and firefighting ever overlap?
With the fire department, it's just a natural born cinematic environment. You could take a camera and point it almost in any direction, and you'll get something.
A friend of mine wrote a story called Firehouse. He wanted to make it into a film, and we were doing some research, and one of the things that he suggested we do, we go inside one of those chambers where they fire. What is it called? Those
Flesh over simulator?
Have you gone inside one of those things?
Yes, several times. If you go to the Flash Over Simulator episode of Ride With Us, you will see that when there's a fire in a contained structure, heat at the ceiling can be hundreds of degrees. As you get closer to the floor, it's cooler, and that's where, as the firefighters, when they enter a burning building, they're always down, crouched down low to the floor, because that's when the cooler temperatures are and they can operate. And so the hose line gets directed to the ceiling to cool down the superheated gas and smoke that's up there. So smoke is actually a fuel.
Anything that burns always has unburned particles in the smoke. Smoke is almost like a gasoline.
And so when the heat reaches a point to ignite the smoke,
All those particles have their own ignition temperature. When they heat up, it's a simultaneous explosion of fire. Everything erupts. That's how you get the full room involvement of fire. That's a flashover. And it's unsurvivable by anybody, whether it's a fireman in fire gear or a human being.
You're simulating what they might actually have so that they know better when they actually experience it in a sort of circumstance where you have more control.
Exactly.
so the last thing you want to do is open up that front door, because what would happen is, just like in backdraft, the rush of air going in will then create that backdraft.
Both of these roles require you seeing things that others might overlook. How does this shape the way you experience the world?
Well, from a firematic standpoint, whenever I go into buildings, I'm always looking at how they're constructed and how fire would impact on that building. If we ever get a fire in here, we got to get around this, and we got to get around, oh, this is going to go, and all that kind of stuff. Cinematic point of view, similar to the being out with the fire department. You're always looking at, wow, what a beautiful um, way the light is hitting this particular object.
What has cinematography and firefighting taught you about people?
If you need to depend on people, and you let them know that I'm depending on you to get this done, usually it gets done. Obviously, in the movie business, where people are getting paid and it's a job, but there is a loyalty also in the film business, where I know people in the camera, lighting, and grip departments that, as a director of photography, you oversee. There is a loyalty to the DP.
You could speak to your younger self about just starting out in both those worlds. What might you say?
Gravitate towards the bigger productions. If you start out with the smaller productions, you kind of difficult breaking out of that. I always aspired to big productions, big equipment, big crews, big, right? And I kind of like that in the fire service as well. Big departments, big equipment, big operations.
What advice would you give somebody who said, gee, I think I'd like to try that. I'd like to try cinematography.
It's the best job being a DP.
Someone wants to get into firefighting. What do you say to them?
It is the greatest job in the world. There's no question about it. It's the best. The fact that someone is calling for help, and you, along with your team, your gang, come rushing in to do what you can to mitigate that bad situation. There's no feeling like that in the world. You are fully alive at that point in time.
Any regrets?
Well, I mean, you see things that nobody should ever see. You have things in your head that you can never forget. And the citizens that we protect owe us nothing. In fact, it's we in the fire service that owe the citizens the privilege of serving them. If someone said, do you ever want to do it all over again? Yes, in a heartbeat.
Would you say the same about being a director of photography?
Yes, I would pursue being a director of photography all over again if I could.
Where can people see your work, or how can they support the firefighting community?
They can see my work by going to my website, raydp.com. I would also encourage them to go to ridewithusft.com for the episodes of Ride With Us. Encourage yourself or anybody else you know to join your local volunteer fire department.
Any last thoughts you might have?
I would say pursue the passions, even though they don't always quite turn out as you hope they might. But you never know. You know, that's the thing with the movie business. You can get that phone call and it'll just change your whole life.
Ray, I want to thank you for taking the time. Real interesting insight into both cinematography and firefighting. I hope our audience feels the same way.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed our time together, please subscribe to my podcast, and please visit Ray's websites at